We are recording.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and I want to thank everyone for attending. I'm Linda Lukowski, and I'm the chairperson. We have Brian Forget, we have Maureen Heffernan, we have Narissa, we have Caitlin, we have Paul Mayette. And Ronnie, can you introduce yourself?
Ronnie Ray Parrott, Selectman from Salisbury.
Alicia?
Alicia Greco, Select Board from Newbury.
Joe?
Joe Perry, Select Board from Rowley.
And we also have Kim Croto. Sorry, Kim. Didn't mean to forget you.
That's all right.
The next item on the agenda is we're going to review the notes from the meeting of March 25th, 2021. That's on Annex 1. We don't have to approve these, do we, Narissa? No, okay. Everybody all set with those notes?
Yep.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Triton end of year activities review.
All right, so this was just to make sure that our towns were aware of the events. Hopefully you all have now received your invitations for graduation, which is a week from Saturday. That's the 5th, right? Saturday, June 5th, 2 p.m. Hoping it's not a hot day because you're gonna be sitting on the turf, so you'll feel that heat. But actually the senior week, class of 21 senior week festivities kick off tomorrow night. We were talking about that a moment ago with the senior prom out at Red Ridge Farm in Salisbury. We actually tested all of our seniors who were not fully vaccinated. So all non-fully vaccinated seniors, which again, single dose of Johnson or Pfizer, Moderna, double doses and 2 weeks beyond. Any individual who was not fully vaccinated by tomorrow night was tested, full PCR test. Rather than sending people out, we actually took on the cost of that and did it in-house. Kristen Jo Levette, who has been hired by all 3 of our towns as a contact tracer, assisted Nadine, the high school nurse. All the samples were collected yesterday, delivered them down to Cambridge, and I think about midnight, the email was in Nadine's inbox showing all negative. So we have a full clear senior class ready for takeoff, senior week starting tomorrow night. And then obviously Monday's the holiday, and then there's other festivities. The tour of the elementary schools, the going to Bodeborg. So all kinds of fun events culminating with graduation next Saturday at 2. So you are invited. If you didn't receive an invite, please let us know. Also to note, just to make sure that you're aware, and remind your friends if they're coming that we do have parking all along, I forget the space numbers, but basically where I park all the way down that row. That entire row will be coned off with blue cones for any of our dignitaries coming to join us. So feel free to grab a cone and park in one of those spots if you are coming to graduation.
Excuse me, Brian, can I bump in here for a second?
Of course.
I just want to send my regrets right now because I am going to be on the Cape next weekend. And I'm very sad because I like going to graduation and I'm sorry I'm going to miss it. But I'll see if anybody else from the board can attend. But I just want you guys to know that I can't make it and I'm really sad about that.
I appreciate that. I'll certainly pass that along to the high school as well, so they're aware.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and if anyone else, everyone should have gotten the invitation, so you can certainly let them know and they can RSVP to the high school and we'll make sure we have a space for them and have their name on the list.
I'll still RSVP, Brian. You don't have to tell them. I will, but I wanted this group to know that's why I'm not able to attend.
Okay. Very good. Thanks, Alicia. So just to confirm this ceremony, so we are still doing, obviously you're aware, the governor has relaxed the restrictions. Obviously Saturday morning, 12:01 a.m., about 3 hours after the prom ends, statewide, all of the restrictions dissolve. Currently, so that will be beyond Memorial Day weekend. The current event requirements do allow to be mask free, and suggest distancing wherever possible. We chose to certainly do mask-free for graduation, but we are still going to keep the same structure in place, namely or specifically in talking with our local health officials for contact tracing and that effort. We aren't going to keep the caps in regards to an overall facility cap, but we're capping it just so that we can manage. So each graduate is able to bring 6 guests. They'll be with their 6 guests in a box on the field. So, and it was actually a request. A lot of families actually said they liked the idea of last year with the parade out at Salisbury Beach being with their families rather than families in the stand and students separate. So we're going to keep it for at least this year. Students with their families, up to 6 guests sitting on the field, and then other visitors around, be standing room. The stage will actually be against the bleachers, rented a rather large stage, and then the band and everyone will actually be in the bleachers so that we can accommodate distancing. We're expecting there's going to be some updated guidance put out by the Department of Ed for singers and such that might allow a little easier performance, because we still have to maintain significant distancing even outside. So miking and for the whole AV production for graduation got really expensive with the amount of microphones we needed to rent and add on. So there will likely be some restrictions there. So it'll kind of be reverse of what it normally is, where everyone's in the stands and we're on the track and field. It'll be the reverse of that. So again, Saturday, 2 p.m. Going to make it as brief a ceremony as possible. Respectful, fun, regular ceremony, but also doing our best to not, have the superintendent talk forever and ever and stuff like that. So I hope you are able to make it, and certainly share with your counterparts as well. For other grades, we celebrate the 6th grade and we celebrate the 8th grade. Obviously, it's not a full commencement, but each of the elementary schools will also be doing a step-up day, 6th grade graduation. They will be outdoors, evening, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, the final week of school. The last day of school is Thursday, June 17th. So it will be that last week. They will, similar, having families sit with students, distanced, masks will be able to be off with the guidance now, but still we're choosing to be a little bit more restrictive just in regards to the distancing, so that we can maintain that tracing if need be. At the 8th grade level, we are having the 8th grade step up day in the stadium. It's actually it's the 16th in the afternoon. And if it's a rain out that day, we would actually do the last day of school in the morning, first thing. Similar setup in the stadium. We'll actually probably do it reversed and actually have folks in the stands since it's a much smaller crowd, obviously. So other than that, those are the big end of year ceremonies. I would say, we are limiting still our families into the school. We are having one-on-one conferences for the end of year for preschool. But other than that, we're not doing any in-school events where families are coming in, gathering at any large crowds. At the high school, did an award ceremony for the senior class in the auditorium. Again, one class at a time, spaced out every other seat. So still feeling more and more normal, but obviously being sure to make sure we're still taking the precautions seriously as we make it to the end of the year. So this is, as the commissioner said last week, I believe, when we were meeting, we were just hoping that the state would just not complicate things for schools and have different recommendations and guidelines, and just hold out until schools could end on the 15th. So certainly with all the wheels coming off the bus on Saturday across the state, there's still going to be some challenge to that, because the restrictions in schools are a little more so. So other than that, end of year activities are fairly traditional. As I said, last day of school, June 17th, half day, send the kids off for the summer, and then start to prepare for a normal-ish fall. We still don't know. We're assuming the commissioner has said informally that he does anticipate that masks will still be worn at some grade levels. I would guess, reading into his words, that it would actually be at the elementary level where students wouldn't have the capacity to be vaccinated at this point. So still a lot to be seen for the fall, a lot to be determined, but we're going to move forward planning as normal as we can and get ready for a fall. And actually, I want to ask, Kim is here, right? Where'd she go?
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, there you
Yes.
are. Is that you that just called in?
Yes, my internet at home just went, so I have
So
I have no
can you-
internet, so I called in.
So can you give us just a brief update on summer plans? Because it's obviously far more extensive than we've ever offered before.
Sure. So we have summer programming happening at all 3 elementary schools and at the middle school. Right now, the high school is still in the process of finalizing their program. I would say theirs is more focused on credit recovery through various means than the other schools, but the other schools are built to address kind of that social and emotional piece that has been so important for us to focus on. It's also focused on some unfinished learning that occurred over the year. And they set up a criteria to identify students who would most benefit from the program, just because we only had so many spots available. And so they wanted to make sure that they addressed the needs of the most significant concerns. And at this point, they have already sent out invitations. And then what they will do is, as seats become available, or if they don't fill the slots, they will open it up to the broader school community, and because they do have a lot of great activities happening. In addition to that summer programming, they also have, for the first time at all 3 elementary schools, a kids club program running that will allow parents the opportunity to drop kids off for the full day if they need to go to work. Those kids who are attending kids club can also join in on some of the summer programming. The programs other than Kids Club are without fee, which is great. Transportation provided, lunches provided. So it really is kind of an all-inclusive program for students. I'm trying to think what else. Right now, like I said, we're still getting numbers in. I think teachers are ready to go. The majority of the staff are Triton teachers. We do have a few outside people who are coming from different schools, which also adds kind of an element of just having a variety of teaching and ideas coming forward. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. Now we just need to get the kids. So that's next. Any questions?
Nope.
Nothing.
Okay, I'm like, oh my God, I heard the silence and I was like, oh no, was I just talking and I got cut off and I didn't know it? Because that hasn't happened before.
No, it sounds like a lot of great programming for the kids.
Yeah,
Yes,
I have to say, like, they've done an outstanding job with programming. Like I said, I'm watching the numbers and I just want them to increase over the next couple of weeks. So we will still continue to advertise and promote the programming.
It's certainly a balance. I think there's several families who are very interested and others who need the break. So we're
Absolutely.
doing what we can to encourage families who we really need to see their students to bring them to the programming. And just to confirm, this is all funded through, this is currently through ESSER 2 funding. So we haven't even touched the ESSER 3 or ARP money. So that is still, we now have our allocation and are expecting the official award letter and all that information soon, along with, as we're learning more and more, a pretty robust plan and reporting requirement that's going to come along with this latest, $1.9 million, the latest round of stimulus funding. But this is still coming from the ESSER 2 bucket of funding. So any questions end of year, summer at all? No, fairly straightforward. Okay.
Then
Brian,
the
it looks
next-
like I'm back online too. So if you can let me in, that would be awesome.
I don't see you in the waiting room.
Really?
No,
I'm coming.
there you are. Okay.
Okay, Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the regional agreement review.
Yes, so just to give you an update, and Narissa, feel free to jump in. You owned this for so long. So the regional agreement as was amended, again, I want to call them largely semantic cleanup of the agreement in compliance with laws, updating to make sure it matched what we actually are doing or what we are required to do. Those changes were agreed over a year ago. It made it onto the Salisbury and Rowley town meeting last spring. It didn't make it onto the, just timing issues, it didn't make it onto the warrant for last spring in Newbury. So it made it onto this past town meeting in May, and it was approved. So that is approval by all three towns. It is now, after a few back and forths with Michelle from the Department of Ed, making sure she had the right document, because pretty sure we had about 371 different versions of the Word document. So we now agreed, yes, this is the real one. Department of Ed has that. We have certifications from each of your town clerks certifying the vote at town meeting. And so that is headed to the commissioner for his approval. And then we'll actually run around and collect the signatures on the actual document of each of the clerks, just so we can have a fully signed document, and then Linda as the current chair of the committee. So I don't anticipate that there's anything that will slow that down. Once that happens, that wouldn't go into effect until July 1st, a year from now. So it uses the calendar year that you're in and goes to the July 1st following. So again, there are no substantive changes really in that document. So there's nothing that we're waiting for. However, now that we checked that box, so remember when we promised and we said we want to come back and really talk about the meat. So I in talking with Linda and Narissa in planning for the discussion tonight, we want to get back to where we were with our discussion about a landlord-tenant arrangement, so formalizing the relationship with each of the towns and the elementary school, and specifically Salisbury, that we own the Salisbury Elementary still because of the fact that we bonded, couldn't transfer until it was paid off. It's paid off now, so it can be transferred to Salisbury. So we want to talk about that whole landlord-tenant piece, as well as I still believe that it is in everyone's best interest to have an alternative funding formula. I'm sorry, an alternative assessment formula. Again, it's not binding. It requires a vote, an approval vote in all three of our towns to use that alternative method. But unless we have an alternative method, we can only use the statutory formula. So all this does is put one more tool in the toolbox. So I think the hope for tonight was to, I don't want to put words in Narissa or Linda's mouths, but the hope for tonight was to agree a plan to get that back on the docket in a timeline coming back in September, whether we set a small working group to kind of revive that landlord-tenant SES ownership piece and the alternative assessment piece, two separate working groups, or whatever works best for folks. We wanted to make sure that we have that front and center again. I'll stop there and see if Linda or Narissa want to jump in.
Oh, I mean, I completely agree with Brian. I mean, we were at the point, right, where we said we kind of have to drop anchor and say, this is where kind of everything parts and we need to come back to this down the road. I think just from what I've seen in the past, I would hope to, I think it's a lot for people unless they're very willing to take on both of these at the same time. So I'd almost hope that if everyone's on board with this, we have two different sets of groups that are working on this, because I think it's really hard to be both in-depth on landlord-tenant and in-depth on the assessment side and be able to keep track of it all, because it's a lot. So I don't know, that's my only thing. I hope that we can move forward, because I feel like this is the next step for the district, right? This is the thing that keeps the district and the towns moving in a direction to stay on the path that we're on, and try to make it so that, there isn't the potential for as much friction down the road. And I think it's in the best interest of everybody to try to avoid that where we can, to give ourselves both delineation in a landlord tenant agreement. This is what belongs where, so there's no questions or arguments about who owns a particular responsibility for buildings, and also, for assessments, to hopefully just, again, give us another tool in the toolbox, so that if things are rocky one year, we can look at it and say, is this an option that we want to employ this year? Because we have another tool that we could use if we wanted to use it. And that hopefully that would, allay issues if there are things coming up.
And to piggyback on that, I mean, having an alternative assessment, all 3 towns have to agree before it's implemented. So it just makes sense to have that in place in case it's going to benefit all 3 towns.
And again, I haven't calculated to be able to say that this is a fact, but an example would have been this type of year where Rowley saw a disproportionate decrease simply because of the fact that the Clark School is in Rowley and a lot of families went there. So we know it's a false deflation, and that's
Right.
going to correct, and it's going to be harder next year for Rowley. So the 3 towns could have said, all right, we're going to assess flat enrollment last year. And right now, because the regional agreement says we use the statutory 2-step formula, anyone in one of our member towns could sue the town if the select board put before the town meeting an alternative method, because it's not an approved method. All we need to do is have something like that in the regional agreement, and we're done, right? Then the only thing that has to happen is it goes before the town meeting. All 3 town meetings say, yes, we understand why we're going to use the alternative assessment this year. It gets voted in all 3 towns. It's foolproof. We move forward. We walk away from a potential challenging year like this, where this past one, or current one for next year. So.
I mean, I can state the obvious with Salisbury. We've been trying to get this for quite a few years, so I am perfectly willing to be on a work group again. I know Joe, Perry, and Cliff, and Larry actually were on that work group. So when Freeman was with me, so we will absolutely want to. And again, the other takeaway years ago was that the alternative assessment allows us to plan our budgets in November versus waiting until the governor's budget. So we've always been for it, and we continue to be for it. So I will be on the assessment group, and I'm sure Neil can be on the tenant at will, because he was the one who was on it the last time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So at least that's the part of Salisbury.
Yeah, just a heads up from Rowley, we're expecting the state to finally sign off on the final figures for the Triton building program. And we should get that in June. So we should get our final numbers and know where we stand. But everything looks good, and I would be happy. Well, I am going to agree to join Ronnie in the on that committee. We'll try it again.
Yeah. Great.
So.
And it was funny, I was up at Algonquin this afternoon, and who walks up behind me but Cliff.
Oh, really?
So I'll see if I can get a hold of him and talk him into being on that committee again too.
I think it was really helpful for Cliff, because prior to that, he really didn't understand the assessment. So when we were talking about things, and Narissa did an amazing job, as Narissa is so skilled at doing, at explaining it and explaining the equation. And then Cliff was like, oh, yeah, I understand this. This makes sense. And I think it was really helpful when we came to that table and had those conversations. And, I'm sad that it didn't go farther than that, because we had some really nice conversations and had some options.
Absolutely, you're right. Yep.
So Newbury, I voted for this, and the remainder of the board voted against it. Well, not that, I forget how the vote went, but the majority of the board voted against this. So I will bring it back to the board. I think it's a good idea. I'm just hesitant to plow forward without their support. So I think I'm gonna I'll circle back and ask Brian and possibly Narissa and Paul. Do you know who on the FinCom would be interested in, well, how does the FinCom feel about it? Let's start there.
So this is my only question though, Alicia, why did you even vote? This is just there is no vote. This is just to come and have discussion. So I'm confused on why you even have to have a vote to come to a table to have discussions. There is no final product that you would have to vote on 100%. This is to just have discussions. And so the history was JR did come to a meeting and then he didn't come anymore to have any of those discussions. So there wasn't you were all for it and I appreciate that, but there's no, I'm confused on why there even needs to be a vote to come sit down and have a discussion.
Right, we have to talk about it, we have to discuss it, and we have to open up and get everybody's views, but we don't get that unless everybody joins in.
Okay, so maybe I'm not remembering it correct. You know, I think this is a good idea. So I'll come to the next meeting when you guys want to meet. Did you meet just with the select board or did you have your warrant advisory and your FinCom there too?
There were two different groups.
Yeah.
Landlord tenant, which is one piece, was I think Neil, Tracy, Joe, were you on that one?
No,
No. Who else was it, Brian? Do you recall? I'd have to look back to my emails. I didn't pull those.
I think
tonight.
Cliff came to one or some of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that piece literally irons out when we're talking about maintenance or emergency issues in the elementary buildings. What happens? Who's responsible?
Isn't that almost done, that one?
It was getting close, I would say.
Yeah, the only linchpin is Salisbury taking ownership of Salisbury Elementary School. And obviously Salisbury was interested in part 2 of this discussion, which is the alternative assessment, obviously for Salisbury. And so there was no, I don't want to make it sound like there was a threat, but they're tied. So Salisbury is very willing to talk about taking possession. I don't want to put words in Salisbury's mouth, but very willing to talk about possession and ownership of the Salisbury Elementary, but want to also talk about this alternative assessment in the same breath. Two different issues, but they're mutually codependent.
Okay, so I guess what's needed from me? I guess that's my question.
I think we need to know who's going to sit. So my idea, I guess when Linda and Brian and I were talking about this, obviously summer can get rough. So I don't know how people would feel about that, but the idea was let's know who's going to be participating in each of those two groups, and then let's figure out kind of how to move forward. So when are you going to meet? What do people's schedules look like? How much time can someone put into this? And hopefully, it would be nice to say we're aiming for a goal of the end of this year, or whatever time frame, to look at having something that's fairly solid.
So, but was FinCom, so there's two pieces. I think Tracy was the one that sat on the landlord tenant thing. And then, because I saw that, she still has that in her working file to complete, I think. So, but the other alternative assessment one, was your warrant advisory committee included in that, and your finance committees, or no?
I know Larry came from Raleigh. So Larry came from Raleigh, but that Raleigh was the only one who had a FinCom. Salisbury did not. It was Freeman and I, and Newbury didn't have anyone. And then there was also kind of another subcommittee that we talked about, which was the chairs. And that was when I was the chair, Cliff was the chair, JR was the chair, and Narissa and Brian. And we all met to kind of figure out what are our next steps about these meetings, about lots of things. And that's where the breakdown was. And there was nobody that would come from Newbury.
Newbury.
All right, so why don't we resume that one? Resume the meeting of the chairs, because I'm the chair now and I'm more than happy to come to that. I think that's a good first place.
But the frustration for us was, again, that we didn't have any input from Newbury and we needed just to talk. We
Yeah, well,
had to
that's gonna
discuss,
happen
we
now.
had to find out where everybody was and what they could agree to and what they substantially couldn't agree on. But we had to talk about it. We couldn't get anybody to come to the committee meetings.
Okay, well, it's a new
But if
board.
you're gonna have it among the chairs, I mean,
Yeah, so I know firsthand that Wilma's not coming. Wilma will appoint me to come, which I'm happy to. But she already, when I said DCC's this week, and she said, "God bless you for always going," I'm not going. And I said, that's fine. I love school committee because I have so many other hats that are connected to that. So Wilma's not gonna, I will ask her, but I know right now she's gonna go, really? You go. And I'm gonna go, okay. So it's gonna be me. So if you wanna call it the chairs, Alicia, because that's cleaner, I'll call it whatever. I'll call it a picnic. I'll call it whatever if everybody will come to a meeting and just have the discussion.
Yeah, so, listen, as chair, I'm more than happy to come to a meeting, and because I know what the budget does, and I know, I mean, for lack of a better word, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I get it, you know? I just, you know, we're gonna have to start over, and I'm sorry, that is just the way it is. So, I mean, we can start over with me. But again, I'm gonna actually want the finance committee there, because if I have to sell it, I need somebody alongside with me. There's power in numbers. So I don't know, Paul, you're sitting on this. Is this something you're willing to tag alongside with me, or?
Absolutely,
Or
yeah.
Maureen, do you want to do it? Or I think Paul might be good because he was on FinCom before. But
And I'm sure Erica
whoever-
would be involved too. I know she's going to be the new FinCom rep to the DCC as well, so.
Yeah, I was gonna also mention Erica. I think she would be a great person to be involved as well.
Okay, so tag Eric is it.
And I
We'll
don't
we'll
think,
volunteer her.
Alicia, I don't think it's starting over because Narissa did a really cool spreadsheet that talks about, Narissa did all of this research, honestly, and it looks at all the, however many school districts, the different types, and it kind of hones down the ones that were reasonable. There are some that are so wild and crazy. And we had kind of said, we want to keep it simple. So Narissa did a nice job. So Narissa just walking in, or Linda, whoever, I'm saying Narissa because she did the work. Linda, you know, you jump in anytime, but yeah.
There's no problem here.
Narissa has this really cool spreadsheet. So I think that's our kickoff place, is just reading
Yeah.
over that. And then, you know, and we've read it over. So then you guys just catch up and read over that spreadsheet. And then
That's
we're all on
fine.
the same page. Then we're all on the same playing ground, or whatever you want to say.
Right, and then we'll meet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so my suggestion, I think, just to kind of move this forward, would be to ask the folks that are here, or the people that you pass this job onto on your boards, would maybe be to email Linda within the next few weeks and let her know for each of those two groups who's going to be serving on those groups. And it could be, you know, like in Rowley on the assessment group, we had two. It's open. So I just say we need to know who it's going to be and how to contact them so that we can start putting those together. And then, you know, Linda, I don't know if she's going to sit on them or how this is going to work. We'll figure that out on our end too. But then they can start getting organized and we can figure out, you know, how to move forward on those. Because it does seem like there's some research needed here, I think, on who's willing. Who's willing.
so
'Cause
how many select board members do you need?
We don't need any. I mean, it could be a FinCom member instead of a select board member if they're interested and invested, and the town boards feel like they are the person that they want to bring those recommendations back. I think that's part of the key, right? So part of it is they need to want to be involved. And then the other piece needs to be that the boards are trusting them to be the person that's speaking for the town as we're going through these conversations.
Can I add, so the landlord tenant discussion is not a hard one, right? It's not complicated. And the only reason it's elevated is because the tie-in specifically with Salisbury, that's tied to the alternative assessment. So the work, the understanding, the meeting of the minds really has to happen around the alternative assessment.
Alternative assessment.
Yeah, and if that resolves and we come up with a solution, I think I don't want to speak for Neil, but his words, it's a fairly straight path forward to agree a process for the ownership of Salisbury to go back, SES to the town of Salisbury, and then agreeing basic landlord, what the towns are responsible, what the district is responsible. It's straightforward because it's the same thing for all three towns for their buildings. So, I mean, I know Tracy's been involved with the landlord tenant piece, and that's great. She could stay involved. And I think if you, and if it's Erica that we volunteered or someone from the FinCom, that could be part of a group. I think that it's the alternative assessment that is where the rubber's hitting the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the FinCom and the select board will have 2 new chairs, so
Okay.
this will be a good opportunity.
Excellent.
And
Who's the
Alicia,
chair
I
of the-
appreciate,
Oops, sorry.
no, it's okay, go ahead.
I was saying, who's the chair of the FinCom?
I don't think they've met yet, but I think it's
Oh, they
gonna
have.
be Erica. Marshall's gonna step down.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be Erica.
Okay.
What were you gonna say, Linda?
No, I'm just gonna say that I appreciate that you're gonna take the role to at least have Newbury come to the table to have the discussion. I think
Yeah.
it's important, I think it's important for all three towns to come and put on a front that we're at least working together.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, I think it's in the best interest of everybody. I mean, none of us are an island when it comes to Triton, so.
So we're all in this together. We all need
Right.
each other. So
I don't know about that superintendent, but.
Yeah, he's crazy, huh? I don't know what his deal is. Oh,
Okay, so if you can do,
Had to
what-
get my dig in, Brian.
I appreciate that, Joe.
so
can
if you guys can
I-
email, oh, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead. Brian,
I was gonna say, so can I throw out an aggressive goal and say that our goal is that we are bringing new language for an alternative assessment, and we'll just call it landlord tenant because it's a catch basin of issues, to town meeting in May of 22, which I believe, right, March 30th at the absolute latest, we would have to be done and handing things over for warrants. Or we could use the same March 15th, which is the budget deadline. Is that
I think that's a goal that we should shoot for.
aim high?
Now, I'll be drinking from the fire hose because I haven't seen any of this stuff up front, and neither has Erica,
Oh,
so.
good. That's I have a control nozzle, so I can feed it to you
Okay,
slowly in good form, and then drinking from the fire hose, and sometimes maybe drinking from the bottle, whatever it takes to get us all.
so
okay.
if you guys could send me who would be on the assessment group as well as the landlord tenant group, that would be
Yeah.
great.
let me circle back with Erica, see if I can talk to her and see what she says, and I think Tracy would be more than happy to complete what she started, so she likes ticking boxes done, so.
Excellent.
And then we'll make sure we start meeting as of September. We won't let September end without a first meeting of both of those groups.
I'll
Yeah, that
ask
would be
Cliff to
great.
put it on the agenda for a week from Monday night.
Great.
Perfect.
So now let me ask you this question. See, this is where I need to, so you're putting it on the agenda for what?
Just to see who's going to go with the committee assignments, whether Cliff is going to continue, whether he wants me to continue. I'm no longer vice chair.
Okay, because see, my board actually took a vote, which is why I couldn't participate in the past. So I actually need to find out. Give me the summer to figure it out, but I gotta make sure that I can do what I am signing myself up for. So,
Fair.
Okay, that's fair.
but I mean, I should be okay. I'll put it to another vote, that's all.
Or call it a chairs meeting.
That's right.
Well, see, then there's that, which is why, I just don't want to do the wrong thing. I want to make sure I dot my i's and cross my t's.
Exactly. Yep.
Executive orders, I don't know, works for the governor.
I know. Is this a public health emergency?
Well, it could
I
call
guess public health trumps everything now.
That's right. That's right. All right. I
Okay,
like-
then the next thing on the agenda is the meeting schedule. And I know that we have the meeting schedule, but I don't think we have the dates available to give to you. We'll have to email you the dates. They'll be starting in September, but we have something that we would like to discuss with you. On August 19th, we would like to do a presentation with the selectmen and the school committee for the facilities assessment for the middle school and high school campuses. It's been long overdue. It's a year overdue. Usually the school committee would see the presentation first and then have the selectmen watch it as well. But since it's this late in how we've done it, we would like to have you join us on August 19th to both of us see the presentation together and have a conversation.
So is this something that you need the entire board or
I,
just the DCC meeting?
I mean, I can, yeah. I mean, I think that the goal is to just get the folks who would be having the conversations, what I think is mostly the DCC, to be able to see what's come out of that facilities assessment, right? So the first step in kind of the process of, in the regional agreement, there's now a 5-year capital plan. That will be becoming a legal responsibility of the district. And as part of that, and knowing that middle school and high school was aging, when I was chair, you know, we worked on getting funding to have a firm come in and do a full facilities assessment. So they literally pulled down ceiling tiles and checked plumbing and everything throughout the building. And we had put off, because in my conversations with Brian, like, this is not an easy, it's stuff that you need to see, is my understanding. They're going to have pictures, they're going to have, I think, blueprints, stuff like that are going to be part of this presentation. So it really needed to be something that was done in person, with the ability to look at it. So I think, you know, the hope was, as we were coming into this, to have it be a situation where it's the full school committee and the DCC able to sit down together and have some conversations about what they found during the facilities assessment and kind of what comes next. Because it's a school committee thing to borrow and put a vote out there, right? But this is most likely, it's going to be big enough that it has to go through the towns for some sort of a vote.
Yeah, so this was actually just timeline. This was a vote out of E&D, and it was done summer of 19, wrapped up around the holidays of 19. We got the final report in like January of 20. And we said, you know what, let's just hold off. Let's finish the budget process before we have any presentations. Finish the budget, finalize it on Wednesday, March 20th, and Friday, March 13th, the world fell, or the sky fell. So we've been kind of pushing it along. And as Narissa was saying, this was not someone walked through the building and did some quick numbers. This was a full engineering study. It was an $85,000 study. So this is not like Rowley's most familiar most recently. This was not a feasibility study, which could cost $1.5 million, right? So that's far more extensive, starting to look at options and all of that. This was campus, stem to stern, all the building envelope systems, you name it, everything, outside grounds was fully reviewed. And then the repairs are in the tens of millions. So we got a report, and so it's not, I mean, they certainly can, you know, put it up on a PowerPoint, and it's much easier being in the same room to look at on a PowerPoint and also give you a color copy of the 50-page report that has kind of the assessment and then the tables of all the information and the repairs. So the key is, you know, as both Linda and Narissa said, we could do this with the committee and then bring it to the towns. And ultimately, because we're already 1.5 years later than when we were originally planning on it, we want to do this as soon as possible. The building is now 21 years old, just finished paying it off. We shouldn't be talking about having to make repairs like this. So we want to use this as a start of a discussion, as Narissa talked about, with a 5-year capital plan, to put us in a position where however we make the decision to make these repairs, long-term, we have a plan in place, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, so that we can continue to remedy and maintain the things that haven't been funded. A lot of, a lot of things that, I don't want to say corners were cut, but there were a lot of decisions made with the renovation project that now we're seeing the wear and tear 20 years later, where we wouldn't had it been kind of gutted and redone. Pine Grove is an example. Pine Grove went from a repair to a gut it to the concrete and the steel and start from scratch with
Absolutely.
a brand new building. And with a maintenance plan, it will look just as good in 20 years. So that we need to get into that place. And so the key discussion will be, when we're talking about 20, 30, $40 million, do we want to do a 10-year capital plan and slowly but surely make those repairs? Or do we want to think bigger, potentially partner with the MSBA and be in a situation where they're willing to pay 50, 60%, and for the same amount of money borrowed, we could resolve issues long-term and have a much bigger project and solution. So none of those are even near a proposal, but this facilities assessment is the first step in that process. And as we said, I think if you can, who do we need versus who do we want there? Anyone who's interested, we would love to have there at that meeting. I would assume if we say, hey, we're talking about big numbers in the Triton campus, I bet there's going to be more interested than not. So
I think so.
yeah, Finance and Warrant Advisory Committee, select board members, hopefully we can get everyone in the room at the same time with the engineers standing in front of the screen. We can all do a workshop format, I guess is the term we were using, rather than a committee meeting or a DCC. A workshop, and we can all ask questions and walk away with a clear understanding.
So when were you thinking of doing this? August 19th, you said, Linda?
Thursday,
Yes.
August 19th. Yeah.
It's a Thursday, it's an evening, a Thursday evening?
We were targeting DCC time. This seems to be
Yeah.
the date.
Okay.
My suggestion would be to notify Debbie Egan and Larry White and Cliff and the new Vice Chair Dina Zev, as well as myself. And I just want to take a page out of the Pine Grove renovation that we went to the state, and there was one woman on the board, and she said, I thought you were talking about a limited scope renovation. And she said, when is a limited scope renovation? $35 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So they're good partners, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So that's a decision, and it's a big decision, right? And we're not going to come out of the gate and say that's what we should do, because I don't know that's the best solution. But it may be that the most cost-effective solution is to partner with the MSBA and have them pay their share and have a larger project. So yeah, so we would absolutely share this. We'll send messages out to the select boards as well as the Finance and Warrant Advisory Committees. If everyone's good with that date, we'll confirm it, get it out there. We've got the engineer lined up, ready to go at that date to come in and make the presentation, and we'll set it up in person, figure out a way to make sure that we're good and distanced within the building, and we can proceed.
Well, in August, it's not gonna matter because the world's gonna be all better then, right?
I'm sheer perfection from what I hear, but
Yeah, exactly.
You are a dreamer.
that's right.
And we'll also put out future DCC meetings for the rest of the year as well.
So to confirm, I know we didn't set dates. We wanted to talk. So Thursdays at 6:30 are still the best. Is that a fair assumption?
I would agree.
It is for me.
Okay. I know that steers clear of all select boards and FinComs and committee meetings. So, okay.
Right. And Narissa and I went through and looked at trying to keep them away from any of the holidays and budgets and all that, trying to make sure that we're be able to stay on target with everything that we want to do this year. Does anybody else have any questions? And the format that we're going to have is going forward for the DCC is wanted to continue with each town hosting the meetings, if that's okay with you guys. So,
I think that's great.
so when we send out the meeting dates, it'll say who's hosting that particular month. And at any given time, if it's not good for a certain town, we can always try and switch it to a different town if
Right.
it makes it easier.
Are we going live or are we staying remote? Can we go in a room?
I think
As of
that's-
June 1, July 1, all of Newbury is going live, in-person meetings.
Yeah, our Board of Selectmen meeting on June 7th will be live.
We've been live. So,
Yeah, but do you have people in the room with you too,
yep,
Ronnie?
yep. We had public comments. We had many of them this week. So just look in the newspaper.
Room. Yeah.
Big building. So yes.
What was the contentious item on the agenda?
It was, we have a cultivation that we had proved that ended up being this ginormous. And I appreciate that people are not happy with how big this was. And then they partnered up with another, our dispensary that we approved that was gonna be.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And they
yes.
moved it.
Yeah.
So yes, we had people coming in, we've had people come, we've been live. We stopped going live for like a couple months and that's it. And we've been live, but yes, we've had people in for about 2 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, we haven't. We've been live since I think in April. The board went, just the select board. Everybody, all the other boards and committees are still meeting via Zoom. And then last night's, this week's meeting, they reported, John Lucy reported that, we have 0.86% or whatever. It's a really low number. So they're gonna start with the mask, the governor's mask mandate and stuff. So June 15th, going by that, by July 1, everybody will be back in the room.
Yeah, so Linda, are we live?
Well, me and Narissa and Brian will have that conversation. I mean, I don't want to come right out and say yes. I think it's something we have to discuss.
I mean, I guess my point is if it's not live, who cares who's the chair and where it is? Because it's on a computer.
Right.
So
I believe it will probably be in person, but I don't want to be quoted on that right this second.
You're
I
recording.
would caution against, and I would think hard about putting this type of information out in a Zoom setting. I would wait until we could meet in person. Personally, I think that's best for everyone.
Are you
That's
talking
just-
about the facility piece?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, we were definitely envisioning that in person for sure.
Yes,
yeah. Okay, good.
because it would be hard for you to see all the slides and all the information if it wasn't in person.
That's right. And it's best to have everybody in the same room.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. We were planning that.
and I'm
And that-
zoomed out.
Right. That's why I say that I'm pretty sure going forward, these will all be in person, but I'm not going to make that decision right. at
Oh,
this
yeah,
moment.
we'll see. It's still too early.
Yeah.
For all the
Definitely.
DCC meetings. Yeah.
I just wanted to note too that I reached out to the town managers and administrators last week, I think it was, to get updated lists of who should be on our DCC contact list and their email addresses. And especially for Newbury, I wanted to let you know that the DCC communications will be switching off of your personal email addresses, which is what all we had in the past. And they're going to now be coming to your town of Newbury email addresses.
Thank you.
So, yes.
Thank
just
you.
Be aware that that's and Joe, I haven't heard from Debbie. She's the only one I haven't heard from. I don't know if we have Cliff's email address. I don't think we have one for Dina. I don't know if that's one you want to add. I guess in the past, I believe Debbie had said that she would, when she got one, she would just forward it out to everyone that was involved. But I think it would be good, given that you have a new vice chair, to make sure that we know that it's going to her. as
Right.
well.
I'll ask on the week from Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, does anybody have anything else? I want to thank everybody for coming. I appreciate all your time. And have a nice evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great
I
night.
just want to offer my congratulations to the new chair.
Yes, congratulations, Linda.
Oh, I thought he was talking to you.
No, to you.
Yeah.
You just
Well,
have
this-
patience. I have a
And
great
then-
role model with Narissa, but have patience.
Yep.
You're doing awesome.
I love everyone who sat as a chair is like, congratulations. Seriously, congratulations.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you. Good night.